Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Still Tuesday. We are knocking out the rest of this refresher course in preparation for openings tomorrow in the Tammy Daybell trial. I'm hoping to get to Boise maybe as early as next week. I would like to go more for a full week of testimony. Openings, I think, are going to be pretty similar to Lori's. Those first few witnesses might be the same. So I would just rather go when I can stay for 5 solid days of testimony as opposed to 3. Before we get started, you know the drill. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video if you haven't already, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Music fact of the day. What was the first rock music video to be played on MTV? Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. Good song. We left off on the day where Lori and Chad went to get their marriage license. That was November 4th. And on November 5th, Lori and Chad are married in Kauai. What's interesting to me about Lori is if you look all the way back to Joe Ryan, Charles Vallow, and Chad Daybell, with those 3 husbands, she was married in Hawaii. She obviously had an obsession with that place. For me, I would not keep getting married in the same place where every marriage ended badly, but I'm not Lori Vallow. KSL talked to the wedding company that did the wedding in Hawaii. Chad called them 2 days before the wedding for a quick ceremony. He, of course, chose the cheapest package, which cost $720. This included a sparkling champagne toast and the pictures we've all seen. Lori was the one that picked the wedding location, and she told the minister she had lived in Kauai before. Kids were never mentioned, and neither was any religion. Lori referred to Chad as a famous author several times, and the minister said that Lori acted more like a giddy teenager than a grown woman. Once word of the kids being missing hit the news, the minister who performed the wedding was so disturbed by that, he had to go to therapy for several months. At some point, Chad gets that payout for Tammy's life insurance policy. They lived on that money in Hawaii, which is not a cheap place to live. At some point, Chad talks not only to his parents, but Tammy's family about Lori. On Dateline, Tammy's sister Samantha and her husband Jason told their side. Chad called Samantha's husband and told him, "Don't tell anybody, but I got married in Hawaii." When he asked why, Chad said he had known Lori from before, and Lori had also just lost her husband. Chad tells Tammy's sister Samantha that Lori's name was Lori Ryan, and she was an empty nester. He said she was an amazing person, and he couldn't wait to introduce her, meaning Samantha, to Lori. Samantha found out her name was Vallow and that her husband was shot. November 6, 2019, an investigator in Gilbert who was working on the attempted murder of Brandon was in contact with Fremont County and learned on this date they were already planning to exhume Tammy Daybell's body as a result of investigation discoveries. The same day, November 6th, Lori and Chad meet with a lady about renting a room at her home. Chad said he got a sign from God about moving into her home. When she texted Chad and asked about Tammy, he says that Tammy helped me reconnect with Lori so quickly, and it helped my children move forward. November 9th, Lori sends Zulema wedding photos. November 11th, Lori's iCloud uses Tylee's AirPods. November 12th, 2019, just before 6 p.m., police say Melaniece trespassed on the property of Brandon's parents. According to the report, Melaniece came to look for Brandon and the kids. One of the children even came to the door, but Brandon's parents brought all the kids upstairs. Police say Melaniece kept pushing the Ring doorbell. Brandon answered, telling her she couldn't be there. The report reveals an officer got in contact with Melaniece over the phone. She tells the officer she hasn't seen her kids in over a month and claimed Brandon kidnapped them from Arizona, which was against the custody agreement. Ultimately, the officer told Melaniece she could face criminal charges for trespassing if she showed up again. The same day, Lori and Chad go to temple in Hawaii. Again, not enough sage in the world. November 13th, key date here. Kay asked Detective Moffat for a contact in Idaho for a welfare check on JJ. November 14th into the early morning hours of November 15th, Melaniece goes back to Brandon's parents' house. She was banging on the door, saying she had a court order. Brandon's dad calls 911. In the call, you can hear him scream, "Get out of my house, get out of my garage, get away from my door now." The police are on their way. He tells dispatch that Melaniece had made threats and he doesn't want her here. He says, "She's in my garage. I'm not opening the door." He said, "It leads to my house, and if I open the door, there's going to be a problem if you know what I'm telling you." Somebody tried to kill my son 3 weeks ago, and she's involved in it. He then yells to get out of his garage now and get off his property. Police arrive at the residence and say they found Melaniece coming out of the garage. I have all this footage on my YouTube. I'm going to link that in the description. There is a lot of back and forth. Melaniece constantly talking over the police. They're frustrated. At one point, she asked for a victim's advocate. That was a page right out of Lori Vallow's playbook from the day Charles was shot and killed. Alex was in the car. You can see this on the body cam footage. The officer determined Melaniece should be arrested. Alex asks how much the bail is going to be on that, and the cop says he doesn't know, but she can call him when she is told the bail amount by the judge. She was booked into the Utah County Jail for a misdemeanor charge, and Alex would post her bail, which was $1,950. Around this time, Melaniece meets her future husband, Ian Pulowski, on a dating app. November 19th, there is a final divorce hearing between Brandon and Melaniece. Melaniece did not attend, and therefore Brandon was awarded full custody. November 20th, in a conversation with Melanie Gibb, Zulema says Chad and Lori are going to Hawaii indefinitely. November 21st, Lori logs into that school app at JJ's. This is the only day where she logs in where there's nothing really important happening in this investigation. November 22nd, she texts her son, Colby. I texted Ty to send it, but I haven't heard back yet. She'll probably do it just before she tells me. The same day, Lori texts Colby, hope you got the Venmo. Kylie said she sent it late. I'll call you when I get a break. Hope you're having a great day. Love you so much. Brandon calls Gilbert investigators after Kay Woodcock told him she found that fake Gmail account that was created by Lori to communicate with Chad before Charles's murder. He also tells authorities they may want to look into Melanie Gibb, who Brandon says was a close friend of Lori's and a recruiter of their religious group. He also says their divorce is finalized and she is still the beneficiary on his life insurance, and he asked for help in getting her removed. November 23rd, at this point, Melaniece is dating this new guy, Ian. He's divorced, he has children, and Ian and his children arrive at his sister Hannah's house for Thanksgiving with his 2 kids in his Toyota Corolla. He told her just a week prior he met Melaniece on a dating app and that she would be coming to visit as well. November 24th, Chad emails Alex his patriarchal blessing. The same day, the 24th, Lori and Chad bring JJ and Tylee's things to the storage unit. They stay around 4 minutes. This is the last visit by anyone to that unit. November 25th, Lori's iCloud again uses Tylee's AirPods. November 25th, Rexburg PD is contacted by Gilbert PD about JJ. Initially, it was only JJ who was mentioned, but they became aware Tylee had not been seen since September as well. And obviously, at this point, we got 2 missing kids. The same day, detectives find out that Lori's Hawaii driver's license is valid through June of 2023. November 26th, big day. Police go to the townhomes for that welfare check. Detective Hermosillo runs into Alex and asks Alex if Lori is home, and he says she wasn't. He explains he was there to do a welfare check on JJ. Initially, Alex didn't respond and just kind of looked over at Chad. Detective Hermosillo asked again, and Alex said JJ was staying with Kay in Louisiana. And Detective Hermosillo tells Alex that's unlikely because Kay was the one who called and asked for the welfare check. Detective Hermosillo asked Alex how he could get in touch with Lori and asked for her phone number. Of course, Alex said he didn't have it. Detective Hermosillo thought it was suspicious because he knew Alex and Lori were way too close based on the initial investigation. The detective asked Alex where he could find Lori, and Alex said she was in apartment 107. Detective Hermosillo and Detective Hope go to Lori's apartment. While Detective Hope was knocking on the door of Lori's apartment, Detective Hermosillo sees Chad driving towards him in a black Equinox. Well, Detective Hermosillo stops Chad and asks him, when was the last time you saw JJ? Chad said it was in Lori's apartment in October. When Detective Hermosillo asked Chad for Lori's phone number, what did Chad say? He says he didn't have it. Detective Hermosillo said he found that suspicious because he knew they were married, but he didn't let Chad know that. So he asked Chad, how do you know Lori? Chad said he'd only met her a couple of times through Alex. When Detective Hope came over to them, Detective Hermosillo asked Chad for Lori's phone number again, and then Chad gives it to him. Detective Hermosillo asked why he hadn't given the number to him the first time he asked, and Chad said he felt like Detective Hermosillo was accusing him of something. Nah, dude, that's your own guilty conscience. Game's up. Matter of time. Detective Hermosillo called Lieutenant Ron Ball He felt based on these responses, obviously there's more going on regarding JJ and wanted more officers to be sent there. Lieutenant Ball, Detective Stubbs, and Kellen Wetton responded. Lieutenant Ball and Hermosillo tried to get Lori in apartment 175 with no luck. From there, they went to Melaniece's apartment, which was 174. Again, nobody there. At this point, Lieutenant Ball tells Detective Hermosillo to get a search warrant. Detective Hope leaves a voicemail for Lori. Later on, Detective Stubbs and Lieutenant Ball make contact with Lori. There is body cam footage of this. They introduce themselves and ask if anyone else is here, and then she says Alex was. Chad was not. Lori tells them this is a big mess. I just got off the phone because they want to do a welfare check on JJ. Lieutenant Ball says, well, where would JJ be? Another cop at this point comes in, and Lori says that JJ is in Arizona with Melanie Gibb. She says Gibb's son also has autism. Lori asks, what's all this? And Lieutenant Ball says, we're a little concerned. Lori asks, why? Lieutenant Ball says, because officers were here and they got a bad vibe. Something was going on. Because nobody knew anything about a child, they're not talking. Lori says this because a lot of stuff's going on. And Lieutenant Ball says, well, that's why we're concerned, because it's kind of weird. Lori said it's very weird. And she said she's had to move around a lot because one of her brothers is trying to kill her. And then she says, obviously not this brother. He's kind of my protector, referring to Alex. She said Adam was in with Charles and that they were going to kill her for her $2 million life insurance policy. She says a lot of stuff's gone on. It's been a horrible year for us. She said they would be moving back to Arizona to put JJ in school there. She said she tried to put him in public school there in Idaho. He went for 2 months and just had a hard time. Lori tells the men, the person you called is my sister-in-law. It's his grandma. And she says JJ is adopted because Kay's son is an addict who had a baby with a girl who was also an addict, and CPS took him. They gave JJ to the grandmother, and she wanted us to adopt him. She said, my husband and I, who died earlier this year. She goes on to say that since Charles passed away, Kay's been trying to fight her for JJ and has been very horrible to her. She says JJ has autism and ADHD and doesn't really talk to people, and that he's very special needs. She had JJ in a special needs school in Arizona. And then she says, my husband, we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, who got $1 million. And when he died, we got nothing for me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing. She said, I knew she was going to try and sue me for him. She has $1 million to hire people to help her, and I have nothing. Lieutenant Ball reminds Lori that she has legal custody. Lori says, yes, I adopted him from the time he was 8 months old. She does nothing but cause me trouble, so I don't tell people the truth about where we are or what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I'm a good person. I raised all my kids. I've done everything I'm supposed to do in life, but everyone is causing me trouble. He asked how long they had been there, and she said, September. My daughter goes to BYU-I. He asked if she lives there, and Lori says yes. She said it's been a nightmare. She mentions moving to Arizona again, saying the school in Idaho was too hard and that JJ would scream and cry, and the principal would have to drag him out of the car. She says Kay doesn't have any legal rights to anything. Kay emails and documents and says, I haven't heard from JJ in all this time. And she said, I've told Kay he's fine. He said their only concern is that JJ is okay. And Lori says, he's fine. I got it. She said it's awful. She feels like she's being tracked all the time and wonders why police are coming. Lieutenant Ball says they've come and run into 2 guys. Lori said that's my brother and his friend, probably Chad. The cop spells Daybell, and Lori says, yeah, he's an author. Lieutenant Ball says, isn't that Chad Daybell? He's talking to the other investigator and said, did his wife pass away recently? Lori says she found texts and emails with Charles and Adam after Charles died. Then she also said Adam had found her and come to her door there in Rexburg. She said she canceled the life insurance policy, so there's no money. Then she says, what are they going to do with JJ and Tylee? She also said JJ might be seeing Frozen 2 with Melanie Gibb in Arizona. She told cops she planned to drive to Melanie Gibb and get JJ later that week. What happens after investigators make this visit? Chad calls Melanie Gibb that morning and told her Rexburg police were going to call her and do not pick up the phone. The police were at Lori's checking on JJ, and Lori was going to tell the police JJ was with her. Gibb says JJ's not with Kay. And Chad said no. She said Chad was super nervous on the phone. Gib was in Utah at the time, by the way. Within an hour or two of Chad calling Gib, Lori calls her. Lori's demeanor was upbeat. She said everything was fine. She told her Kay was trying to kidnap JJ and possibly other family members, and she was only trying to protect him. Lori told Gib that she told the cops JJ was with her and that they were seeing Frozen 2, and asked her to take photos of random children running around to make it look like she had JJ. Later on that day, investigators go back to Lori's and ask her to call Gib. Lori tells the investigators they were seeing Frozen 2 and that Gib probably wouldn't answer. Rexburg PD tries to call Gib. They get no answer, so they call Gilbert PD to help get in touch with Gib. They leave a message for her to call back, and then they go by her last known address and nobody answered. Then they go by her ex-husband's house. He was at home, but they did talk to her oldest son, who told them she was in Utah with her boyfriend, David, and he didn't think JJ was with Gib. Someone at the residence agreed to have Gib call back. The investigator gave a business card, and as a result of JJ's unconfirmed location and Gib's lack of responses, they set up surveillance at Gib's ex-husband's house. That day, Gib did not respond to Rexburg. She said the reason was Chad told her not to, and Lori said JJ was in danger and she was confused. She did talk to Gilbert Police Officer Pillar. She returned that call at 9:40 p.m. and he asked about JJ. She told him she had been with JJ, but he was back with Lori. Later on, Gib would say the reason she said that was to get the focus off her and back to Lori, who was in Rexburg. At the preliminary hearing, she admitted to Rob Wood that she lied to cops. She said Lori was manipulating her and misleading her that JJ and Lori both were in danger, and that's why she lied to Detective Pillar. Gib also said Alex told her in Arizona he can't believe Lori threw her under the bus like that. A child endangerment case was initiated that day. That night, everybody flees the townhomes. They're empty. Let's talk for just a second about Tammy Daybell. I want to read from Tammy's obituary. When she was 13, she moved with her family to Springville, Utah. She was an excellent student and she played the drums and clarinet in the Springville High School band. She was the yearbook editor her senior year. Most of all, she was known for her friendly smile and kindness to everyone. Tammy shared a love of books and reading with her family. She created her own library, lending books to her siblings with actual library cards and fines if they weren't returned on time. Tammy loved classic musical movies and learned the songs and words, and then her and her siblings would reenact them. She worked as the secretary for Springville Parks Department. As part of her job, she typed thousands of handwritten burial records into a computer database. This helped spark her interest in family history, which later would become her favorite hobby. Throughout her life, she submitted more than 100,000 names for temple ordinance work. Tammy loved ducks and gardening. She loved cooking, playing games with the family. Her laugh will be remembered and cherished. Tammy was a very much beloved librarian there in Idaho, and they have set up the Tammy Daybell Foundation. Proceeds from that go to put books into schools to further Tammy's love of reading. November 27th, 2019, there is a search warrant executed at the townhomes of Lori, Melaniece, and Alex in Rexburg. They find a large number of firearms in Alex's unit. There was very little sign of JJ living there. They found 2 silencers, a mask, several guns, including 2 rifles, camouflage suits, and those hazmat Tyvek suits. We saw photos of all of this at Lori's trial. They also found army knives, empty magazines for guns. They located 2 backpacks with kids' items inside and an old prescription for JJ from January of 2019, which was last filled in Arizona. There were 17 pills still left in the bottle. The rental lease showed Alex had apartment 175 and Lori had apartment 107. Alex's stuff was found in 175. And during surveillance, investigators said Lori stayed in 175, but never 107. They also searched the storage units. They find the kids' blankets with photos all over them, winter clothes, toys, a bike, backpack with JJ's initials, and JJ's scooter. Larry Woodcock said at CrimeCon a couple of years ago when being interviewed by Nate Eaton, when he saw that scooter in the unit, he knew something was really wrong. JJ loved that scooter, and he would wear out one shoe within weeks because of how he would use his foot as a brake. Investigators learned Lori didn't update her payment method, and the January 2020 bill went unpaid. They tried contacting her from the company, but no luck. Gilbert police at this point are asking Rexburg if there was any record of Tylee even being in Rexburg. Investigators start to find everybody's social media accounts. Lori and Alex had a Snapchat. Tylee and Alex had Skype. Melaniece and Alex had WhatsApp. Lori and Tylee had Venmo. Tylee and Melaniece had Facebook, and Tylee had a Twitter account. At this point, detectives go and talk to Colby, Lori's son. The same day, he calls Lori and told her police had come and talked to him. Lori told him JJ and Tylee were fine and that she would contact the police about it. Also, at this point, the FBI is called in to help by Rexburg PD. Lieutenant Ball calls Melaniece as she is driving to Ian's sister's house for Thanksgiving and tells her somebody has broken into her home and to call right away. Melaniece thought Brandon sent somebody to do it, and she later texts back that it's Thanksgiving, she's with people she loves, and that's all that matters. And if her whole apartment was robbed, that's okay. Later on, she finds out that was due to a search warrant. When she returned to Rexburg, she asked Hermosillo what was going on. Melaniece arrived at Ian's sister's house around 6:30 p.m. to have Thanksgiving. She was driving a blue Nissan Rogue. Ian's sister spoke to detectives with Gilbert PD on December 26th. They told Ian's sister they were following up on the missing kids, and she said she had actually seen media coverage of it. The night before Thanksgiving, Melaniece stayed until around 11 or 12 that night and then left. She came back the next day for Thanksgiving and spent the night there. She said Melaniece talked a lot about Brandon and said that Brandon had blamed her for someone shooting at him. She told Hannah they divorced because of Brandon's promiscuous behavior. She said she also had to leave her children and had not seen them for some time. Hannah said that Melaniece appeared detached, and she had mentioned JJ and Tylee, but nothing specific, and it was all just really small talk. She also said her Aunt Lori and Chad went to Hawaii. November 28th through December 1st. Can you guys imagine how awkward this would have been? But Chad and Lori stay at a residence in La Mirada Buena Park with Chad's kids. There are 2 rooms booked. Social media photos show they were at Knott's Berry Farm. November 28th, Colby tries to call his mom, but the number is disconnected, so he sends her an email. Mom, you changed your number. What's going on? Lori doesn't respond until December 2nd. I need you to know that we are safe and happy. I know this sounds confusing to you, but I need you to trust me. That although there are wicked people trying to cause harm, that Jesus is on our side and taking care of us. Although we may be out of touch for a while, I will continue to help you. I love you all so much. The car and the car insurance will be paid for so you can drive it with no worries. The phones will also be good. You are precious to your mama. I love you so much. Kisses to you, and I hope to talk soon. I will continue to pray blessings on your family constantly. Colby responds, okay, Mom, I love you. Please be smart and take care of the kids and yourself. I don't know what's going on, but I'm praying for all of you. I'm mad and sad, but I know I can't control anything going on. Please be safe, all of you. We love you, and if you can help us through Venmo too, that would help. I'm going to be getting a second job, but until then, we could use a little help. You have helped us so much with the car and phones, so thank you for that. I love you all. November 29th, Chad rents a car in Fullerton, California. That rental goes from November 29th through December 1st. They drive 187 miles for the duration of that rental. Also, November 29th, Alex and Zulema get married. An employee of the marriage chapel told Justin Lum the minister said the ceremony was cold and it lacked any emotional response. They wanted to get in and out. The ceremony was 8 minutes and the witness was the chapel security guard. Alex also took Zulema's last name. Kay emails Detective Moffat an email that was sent to Charles's Gmail account from AT&T saying that Lori cut off her Wi-Fi at the townhomes. Kay says, I guess she's not planning to go back there. Kay also tells Moffat that Lori has a P.O. box in Sugar City, Idaho. Also on this day, Lori emails Melanie Gibb wedding photos. November 30th, Ian and Melaniece leave his sister's house with his 2 kids. His sister said that Rogue was left parked in front of her house, and she was told someone would be by to get that car. She was a little uncomfortable with it, but her and her husband were leaving that morning, and when they came back around noon, the car was gone. Ultimately, it was Colby who came and got the car. Colby couldn't get in touch with Lori, so he had Alex's number and texted and called. Alex told Colby that JJ and Tylee were fine and then gave him the address of where the car was located, telling him that the keys would be in the glove box. Hannah told investigators that Ian said Melaniece drove that car to Arizona with her uncle Alex. Also, on this day, Melaniece and Ian marry after 2 weeks of dating. Alex and Zulema are the witnesses of the marriage. Melaniece told Nate Eaton of East Idaho News about the wedding. It was really fast. I was in this battle with my ex and didn't have my kids with us right then, but we both felt ready. We pray about decisions together, and we felt it was right that we get married when we did. Vegas wasn't dreamy or anything, but our goal was to be sealed in the temple one day with all of their kids present. And so we said, let's do this. The coincidence of us picking the day right after Alex and Zulema was not planned. This isn't our big wedding day. It's just the beginning of our lives together. And we'll have that special moment when we're all together as a family. On their wedding night, Melaniece expressed concerns about her kids. She also explained zombies and her fears about what Chad and Lori stated concerning the original spirits being caught in limbo until the body's death. She stated that Brandon had been possessed by a demon or another dark entity sometime after June of this year. She was told either through revelation or by Chad that something needed to happen to Brandon in order for his spirit to progress and for the Lord's plan to continue. She didn't take well to the idea of her husband dying as part of the Lord's plan, but didn't think action would be taken by anyone. Ian says he got worried when Melaniece said Chad and Lori could have directed Alex to take a shot at Brandon, but she wasn't sure. When discussing JJ and Tylee, Melaniece had been told by Chad and Lori that their children had been possessed and become zombies. She shared concerns that she had been told Brandon needed to die, and that may indicate Tylee and JJ needed to die as well. This is all written down by Ian at a later time, by the way. She told me she was worried that Al may have had to have taken care of them, meaning the kids. She explained that Al had great faith and never wavered in his trust in the Lord. No task would be too difficult or too great for him. Can you imagine getting told this on your wedding night, y'all? If I was that dude, I'd have been out the door as soon as she was sound asleep, and I would have never looked back. In Brandon's divorce and custody case, he presented a document that came from Ian's computer explaining some of the beliefs and Ian's take on things he was being told. At some point in November, Chad and Lori tells Chad's parents that Lori was an empty nester. Tammy Daybell's sister and her husband, if you remember, they were also told by Chad and Lori that Lori had no juvenile children. Colby's wife, Kelsey, sends a message to law enforcement saying that detectives came to their house wanting to know if Lori was living there. She said her and Colby had no idea of her whereabouts, but she wanted to get a call back saying they were shocked. According to East Idaho News, in early December, there are boxes delivered to a vacant rental home in Hawaii from Idaho. A neighbor alerts the owner of the unit about the boxes, and the owner tells the neighbor, who is a real estate agent, just to put those inside the home. A few days later, Chad and Lori meet with the owner and tell them they've signed a long-term contract for that unit. December 1st, Lori and Chad fly from LA to Hawaii. While they're on the island, they are under surveillance. Investigators obviously notice that JJ and Tylee are not there. Ian's mom calls him and says his ex-wife has found out Melaniece is in a cult, Chad is the leader of the cult, and Alex murdered a man. In an email exchange between investigators, they talk about the large number of firearms recovered from Alex's apartment in Rexburg, and they mentioned he's a convicted felon. We talked about this on an earlier episode. That was reduced to a misdemeanor, but with them not knowing this, they discussed looking into federal or state felon in possession of a firearm charges to bring Alex into custody, thinking that might put pressure to get him to talk. Although they do acknowledge if JJ was harmed, Alex probably wouldn't say anything. But if JJ was okay, it might give him motivation to reveal where he was being hidden. December 3rd, in an email between investigators, they say Melaniece showed up at the Rexburg PD and was speaking with them. Ian called Rexburg PD to check on Melaniece, and he told Rexburg PD he didn't know Lori or JJ, and he's only known his wife Melaniece for a month. Investigators were supposed to have a meeting that day, but decided to change that since Melaniece was there interviewing. According to Fox 10 Phoenix, Melaniece told Ian she was interrogated for 5 hours and said officers were possessed with the spirits of 2 of the original disciples of Cain. December 3rd, Alex activates a burner phone. Ultimately, Ian meets with Lieutenant Ron Ball and someone from the FBI and says it's possible that Chad, Lori, and Alex were behind the shooting on Brandon and that JJ and Tylee could be in danger. Ian also says while they were all in Vegas, Alex and Zulema were preparing earthquakes to hit Salt Lake City, which would mean Many possessions would happen because of the number of people injured. Ian allows investigators to get data from his phone. He meets with them later that afternoon again. This is when investigators give Ian a recording device to see if he can find any information about JJ and Tylee or the attempt on Brandon. Ian's ex-wife contacts a business associate of Brandon's to try to find him. She said that Melaniece told Ian that his kids were full of light, but that could change at any moment. Natalie tells this friend Ian is terrified and asked her to keep the kids on his weekend because he did not want them around Melaniece, and she said that's something he's never done. She also says Ian told her to research Alex Cox and Chad Daybell. December 5th, detectives have Zulema and Alex under surveillance. They were last seen leaving in Alex's truck for 50 minutes that evening. Alex texts Chad a new burner phone. He had Chad's contact listed as Guy. The message was, "Hey, it's Ray Romano." There's no response from Chad. December 6th, Melanie Gibb calls Rexburg PD and says Lori and Chad called her on November 26th separately, asking her to lie about JJ being with her. December 6th, investigators put together an involved persons matrix. In it, it says Lori allegedly had a religious prophecy that Brandon was gay and convinced Melaniece it was true. As of this date, Brandon has paid Melaniece $300,000, and she would likely get more money when their home was sold. And also, Brandon had that life insurance policy with Melaniece as the beneficiary. The same day, detectives from Rexburg PD interview Garth Daybell at Madison Junior High. One thing I forgot to mention, and I do think it's possible, Chad Daybell's son Garth could testify at his trial. Garth was home when Tammy was found by Chad, and also Garth was the original caller on the 911 call. He sounds very stunned and dazed. Eventually, Chad gets on the phone. So I do think it's possible he may be called to the stand by the state to talk about what happened that night. There were some discrepancies in how she was found. The same day, Alex complains to Zulema of having shortness of breath and burning in his chest from this day forward. He also texts that guy contact, which is Chad, asking about Lily, which is Lori. Investigators note Lori is the one responding from Chad's phone. December 7th, Alex drives to Mexico to buy prescriptions due to the lower cost, although you will never convince me he did not get something that would ultimately cause his death a few days later. December 8th, Gibb records a conversation with both Lori and Chad. This phone conversation, y'all, I'm not going to go through it. Initially, Melanie Gibb confronts Lori about lying, saying that JJ was with her. Then they get into a lot of religious, I know you are, but what am I's? It's safe to say at this point, the friendship's over. Also around this time, Ian agrees to wear a wire to see if anyone slipped up about JJ and Tylee. He types notes on his computer about what Melaniece is telling him about her beliefs. He texts his ex-wife saying Melaniece is being wrapped by her uncles. She knew of the attempt on Brandon after the fact and has been told 2 of her children are dead. He ultimately stops recording these conversations because he felt things weren't the way they were being portrayed to him, and he got mad at the FBI, so he just stopped recording. December 9th, Alex texts Zulema asking if she ordered the storms that are occurring, and she responds she ordered the storms when they were having a barbecue. December 10th, Alex asked Chad to give him a blessing because he had a bad attack and he couldn't breathe. All right, so we are going to end here. I thought I was going to do 2 today, but these videos are long. It takes so long to upload to YouTube. I'm just trying to split them off to where they're not over an hour. We will pick back up on December 11th, the day they exhumed Tammy Daybell's body. We will see you soon.